our
Yep.
talks.
All right.
You don't mind, huh? For them
I
to
don't
be
mind.
public.
I don't
Good.
mind.
Good.
So there's the skin folding that I continue to explore. And my maps of that are getting better and better and more expansive the more I look at these pictures of these statues or sculptures rather, and then the more that I go back and watch some of Leonid's ABR lectures, that because he talks about different ones that I wasn't even necessarily thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've kind of observed him talk about is shape and the contours of the body. And it made me, it reminded me of, funny enough, an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger that I had seen in some documentary at some point years ago, where he talked about while he was exercising, he was visualizing uh, the muscles, and I think he was even talking about in the bicep curl, he was visualizing like the peak of the peak of the muscle, and was really trying to feel the peak and visualize the shape change of the muscle. And I thought that it kind of made me think of that, but rather than necessarily visualizing the peak of the muscle, I've been visualizing the I don't know what you call it,
The folding?
the folding,
The depth? The
the
depth?
depth, right? And um, what I kind of yesterday I was playing around with it in the park, and what was really interesting was if I visualized those sculptures and visualized not only the folds but also the peaks and um, ravines of the muscles, and I tried to either move or just shape my own body to mirror that, something really interesting happened as far as I felt um, it's just crazy even to think about, but it's almost like I was sculpting my own body by visualizing where the shape transitions should be in my own body. And
Can you give an example
yeah,
of
so
that shape building, shape
yes.
construction?
Let me see if I can pull up a photo that will help here.
And this is interesting because Chris asked me if we have any recorded talk about the folds. So it's good.
So let me. Well, I gotta share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
So start with this one. So the folds of the lower abdomen, where basically it folds kind of into the groin and also kind of down and back under the pube.
Mm-hmm.
And then the navel fold, so which technically there isn't much of a fold here, but you can visualize where the navel would be, and that there's something behind that that's almost drawing it backwards. And then at the same time in the back, and it's not the greatest one. At the same time, so this is actually a great one. You can see in the front how that shape is kind of diving down into the groin fold and the pube. And the behind the navel, it looks like it's being pulled backwards. And then you can kind of go to the back of the pelvis, and you've got the shape of the back that seems to be diving down into the back of the pelvis. And then you've got the shape of the fold at the lower glute and hamstring.
Yeah.
And then if you came around to the back and looked at the tailbone area, the sacrum area, how the glutes fold in almost like wings into the tailbone. And then you have the spine, which is almost like a channel that the two sides of your back also kind of fold into. So I have been playing around with systematically going through all those different areas, right? But then yesterday I was just walking through the park, and I literally tried to get all of them to happen at once. So I kind of, I don't know, squeezed or drew my belly button back. At the same time, I literally tried to create the indentations where the lower abdomen goes, and at the same time tried to create this indentation in the back here, and also this channel of the spine, and if I were standing, the lower glute thing. And what I found was, all of a sudden, I had an embodied experience of my body reconfiguring to that shape from the sculpture. And I felt, postural wise, like my body shifted into this better state. And then I could, I was standing taller. I felt more supportive, but it was a dynamic thing. It wasn't restrictive, because I could then use that as like a set point to then, explore this fold or explore the groin fold. And it was the first time I think I just realized that it's the first time I think I maybe woke up to the fact that it's possible that our body is much more moldable than I thought. And it also
segmented. Would you say segmented?
Segmented but whole at the same time.
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah.
And that, for so long now, largely because of the TAT course, right? I've been so like anti-muscle, but now thinking of muscles as shapes rather than necessarily, mechanical things, as shapes. And I all of a sudden kind of realized that if I have a better understanding of the shape that said muscle should have, because of the dynamic nature of muscles, you can actually reshape it in real time, right? I can make my muscle a different shape. And if I start doing this systematically over the whole body, it has a way of changing the whole shape of the body. And I haven't done it yet, but it actually made me think that there might actually be some benefit in, classic bodybuilder exercises, but not doing them with the intent of, building a muscle or moving mechanically. But if I visualize the ravine, the dipping down of the bicep into the inside of the elbow, and then back behind the deltoid, and I explore kind of really slowly that movement, almost not even paying attention to the middle part, just paying
Hmm.
attention to the
Yeah,
fold
yeah, yeah,
part.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then when I go down and go back out, same thing, is I can imagine the contours of the tricep and moving through that. There's something really nice about that feeling. And after doing that, it gives me a sense of having more, uh, my arm feels more, I don't know, fluid, which
Hmm.
seems so counterintuitive because for a while I've been thinking that the last thing you want to do is an isolated movement. But thinking of it as almost like the analogy of I'm literally going in with a chisel and chiseling out the energy force pathways of where I want things to flow. So there's that, and then also just anecdotally, I would say with my clients over the last couple weeks, the feedback on the folds, but also the new folds that I'm exploring with them is it's been it's been incredible.
Which are the new folds you're exploring
So
besides the abdomen?
the newest would be well, I'll go over a couple. Blah, 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 blah. So this channel of the spine, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I've noticed in most of these old sculptures is like you've got one side of your back that wraps around and then it goes into the spine and the other side goes into the spine. So the spine is kind of sunken in a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
not to the point of being flat, but it's sunk in. So I've been having people explore um, taking one half of their back and trying to kind of turn it with the intention of having it go, if this is the spine, having it go around and back into the spine. So it's almost like one half of my body's not moving and the other half is being turned and revolved
Mm-hmm.
around into the spine, and exploring that, right? And then doing a similar thing with the glute, because like the glute comes around and then it goes into the tailbone.
Mm-hmm.
So having a similar thing where the movement is very similar to if I explore the groin fold, this hip goes backwards. But
Yeah.
rather than having my attention here, it's having my attention here. And just like the back going around and in, it's trying to feel like my glute is being, I'm pulling around the glute
Mm-hmm.
in back into the tailbone, which gives a very similar but different sensation than the groin. And then
Mm-hmm.
um, this, the glute going out and diving back in, having people explore trying to make that indent as deep as they can.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, pairing that with the the line at the
Yeah.
top of the pelvis. So I'm like making that deeper as I'm slowly extending through the spine.
Mm-hmm.
See, there's that one. I've been doing a lot with the toes and the ankles. Um, the shoulder, kind of that contour of like, if I'm extending my arm out to the side, you have the deltoid that dives down under on the side and also dives in here. So having people explore that movement with the intention of, as my arm's going up, both of those divots getting deeper and 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 go 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 go, and it completely transforms how my arm moves through space, and it kind of eradicates the tendency to lift my arm up with the muscles that stabilize the neck. And it's you can see how it kind of stays connected to this
And
rather than,
after that height, how do you go up? So you start from the deltoid, as you said,
yep.
and then if you want to go higher, what do
I
you
just
do?
keep focusing on that the shape
Indentation.
of the, I guess it's where the deltoid goes into the, like the acromion,
Glenoids.
the AC
Yeah,
joint. Yeah.
yeah.
And I just keep trying to make that dive under. Um, and then I've been doing, I don't do historically a lot of abdominal training, right? But I've been doing a lot of folding. And recently I was playing around with where I was laying on my back and raise my legs up straight in the air, right? So I'm on my back, legs straight up, and then I try to reach my legs straight up. So my tailbone's coming off the ground, and what I feel is the fold of my navel start, like there's a fold at the navel, and then I'm trying to make that navel fold dive down under as I hold the legs straight up.
And what's happened on your upper torso, on your scapula?
I'm trying to keep everything above the navel as relaxed as possible.
Okay.
And so I did that a little bit, and then I did a similar thing, but the opposite, where my legs are passive, and I'm laying on my back, and then I raise my upper body up, right? But I don't allow my neck to fold. Not that I think there's anything wrong with that, but I keep everything basically from here
Mm-hmm,
elongated, and
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I fold through the navel, and it's not a huge movement, but then I hold that as long as
Hmm.
I can. And basically I'm doing these things with, like, okay, let me just do the movement and then hold it as long as I can. And so exploring with that.
Can I just show you how I do the
Yes,
the why of the foldings and how I explain my clients how I do it?
yes,
Let me see if I can show you here. So I'm here, okay, and I have them up with the feet up or down. I don't care. Can be down, and I just go to one side and to the other, and I see them because most of them they tend to brace, especially if they are up here. So if I brace and if I do DNS, like
yeah,
if I go to one side, these one starts responding because there's a connection straight up. Okay. And what I want to see is that these weights, the legs and the hips, they can move without disturbing anything up here. And
yeah,
that can only happen if I'm sinking here, 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 groin. So everything is sinking and I can move without having any translation up there. And I tell people that whenever, if they can do it, it's like when they are walking and they can walk without walking, without transferring all the motion of their legs and their hips to their upper torso. They disperse it and they
yeah,
distribute it inside to the folds.
yes,
That's how that's how I vision the
yes, yes.
folding and the working. I don't know.
I like that. I'm gonna play around with that for sure. um, Another thing I've been trying to play around with is, so we have the folds, but we also have the ability to I'm gonna use the word layers for lack of better ways,
Mm-hmm.
but like that ability for the fascia of different layers to go like this.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, what part of my body did I kind of focus on that? Uh, so kind of like picturing the lining of my rib cage, right? And trying to almost try to pull all of this up back behind the rib cage in different vectors, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
getting that sense that as that happens, there's almost like a layering thing
Mm-hmm.
happening where, like, if I had 10 hands, each layer would be going like this, and then the one on top would go this, and then and similar thing with like my neck going down in
You're almost using the image that Leonie likes of the tectonic plaques, the
yes, yes,
geology, because it's like one plate that goes under, or they don't smash and come up, or they
yes.
don't smash and go down,
And what I
or
what I
they can
noticed,
smash and go down.
right,
But
and what I noticed is I can do that sensation without uh external movement, meaning I could sit here and I can picture my thoracolumbar fascia, and I can literally create a sensation that the layers of the thoracolumbar fascia are bunching without me arching back, or I
uh-huh,
can,
uh-huh.
with my foot, I can sit here, and I mean, there's a little bit of maybe movement. You can see my toes become more
Uh-huh.
active, but what I'm trying to do is visualize uh, the plantar surface of my foot, all converging, and it has a sensation that my arch is building, but it's not like I could do the same thing and take my foot and do this, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But it's more subtle where I'm just,
I know.
you know what I'm saying?
It's like you're pulling a cloth with your toes,
I'm doing it with
dragging
my
it to you,
toes and my heel. I'm doing it with the whole bottom of the foot.
yeah,
Every direction is being pulled,
like a
almost
suction.
like a vortex. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
that's been interesting to think about what that's doing under the
Hmm.
skin, so to speak. And the way I kind
Yeah.
of think of it is like the Velcro gripping that's inside going to the
Uh-huh.
skin.
Uh-huh.
I'm pulling on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm pulling on it, but I'm not letting the skin fold with it. It's almost like
I understand.
I'm maximizing how much I can pull without distorting the surface of the skin.
Yeah, I understand. We or I play a lot with that, especially working with the legs in
Mm.
the groin, where you do like when you do when you try to do this kind of when you try to do this kind of motion, if I just lift my leg, it does one thing. But if I'm here and I pull it
Yeah.
inside, it's a this action releases my quad, releases
Yes.
my I can stay here without even sinking, because I'm velcroing, as you say.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
velcroing the thing inside. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I've
I
also
see it a
I've
lot.
al- I've also been doing a lot. Well, not a lot. Maybe like twice a week. Um, Getting back into doing like more more rhythmic
Hmm.
but using, despite the chaos of the speed of the movement, I'm flowing a path that always converges into a fold. Right? I'm
Yep.
always converging into a fold. I might do that, or I might do
Yeah.
this. And it's like the slow work I do allows these fast movements to just flow where they feel like they need to go.
And actually, you could use that throwing motion and not distributing the end motion on the groin, but distributing it at the abdominal fold
Yes,
now.
yes, yep, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Um, uh, what else? I think that's kind of it as far as things. I'm exploring more and more of that. Um, the scapula. I'm doing a similar thing where I'm exploring the ability to move the scapula with the intention of like picturing all of the tissue that lies behind the scapula and kind of like trying as my shoulder blades being pulled back to the spine, visualizing the, whatever exists under the shoulder blade also going through that folding bunching movement, and exploring that at different angles.
You could also go up, huh?
Go up.
Yeah.
I've done some where I start it there and then I just let the arm then follow, which is interesting because if you do it that way, you feel how the body naturally turns towards the arm, and
Mm-hmm.
how that flows directly into the opposite abdomen.
Fold. Uh-huh.
So it's like
Not
these,
abdomen. Abdomen, you mean fold.
like the more,
Abdominal fold.
it's like as I do that, right, I start to feel a lot of tension building in what historically I would call like my lower trapezius. But the more tension that goes into that, the other side oblique area ramps up its tension because both of those areas are twisting my body together.
And could you tense the trapezius muscle area and distribute that torsion on your abdominal fold on the left side this time?
Yes.
Like on the, yeah.
Yep.
So for me, that's the action that I'm looking. Where can I move without the localizing of tension?
Yes.
Where can I distribute inside the tension that I'm creating outside?
Yes. I also had this idea. Did I write this down? Um, I've had this idea for a while, but I kind of tried to at least write it down in some concept. In that, um, Lena talks about stability being more primary than movement,
Mm-hmm.
and that stability is the ability to dissipate forces, and this kind of conceptualizing this dissipation happening from the macro to the micro and from the external to the internal. And the folds that we see are like uh, the so I want to have this visual in your head of a river flowing, and then as the river flows, periodically a smaller stream will branch off, and then that will then branch off into three or four more, and then that it will keep working way down. So you start with one major flow, and then it gets smaller and smaller in scale,
Mhm,
and as you get
mhm,
smaller in
mhm,
scale, there's more and more. And having the concept of the skin folds as being the major flow, and then the sliding under the skin as being the next scale, and
mm,
then and then ultimately you keep working your way down until you're at the level of Gibberto's fibers, which the bonds break up and re-break. So you can think of it as like um, ultimately you want to get to you want to send everything down to that level, because that's at that level you have the highest I guess I'll use the word rate of dissipation. Like every time
mhm,
those fibers disassociate, you're dissipating energy. So, and there's millions of them in like that small area. So ultimately, we want to send it all to there, but you can't get it to there if it doesn't go through this channel.
mm,
And I'm thinking of the body now as being this closed loop system where you can just constantly redirect energy around, because there's always a place to send it to that's a smaller scale that will change more. You know,
mhm. When I understand what you say. When you say when you go to that place, you mean that that place is deeper in the body, in a deeper layer.
I
Do
don't,
do
I,
you do
yeah,
you mention? Are you
I don't know if I think of it as,
presuppose that?
I think it can be, but I think of it right now as just size scale.
Okay, okay, because I think that that size scale happens right uh, together at the skin level.
Yes,
So all depths have to have or may have that quality or may have not that quality.
yes.
And so when I express the fold by folding the skin, I can only express it if those Gumberto's constraints, so the depth of the fold, are there to work. Otherwise, the skin will do its job if it does, if it has enough tension to hold the whole tension that is being built inside, like in abdominal inter-abdominal pressure,
Yeah,
a bulking of the abdominal. But then, if those constraints are working, there would be no the the holding of the skin is pliable, becomes pliable, and in that point, I can move in the tension without creating local points of accumulation of tension.
mm, mm.
I see that in uh, for me. Uh, can I show you just something
Yep,
here?
yep,
If my dogs that are lying on the floor, they all allow me. Sai, 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 sai ni, sai um bocadinho, sai bocadinho, sai querido, sai. So if I'm here, sai, 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 sai. So I'm here and I will lift my legs off the floor and I let my lumbar spine come off the floor.
yep,
And I may have this intra-abdominal pressure, okay? And this is a one stage of holding,
yep,
okay? I can also do the same thing with training, letting these being supple, and I can breathe with the
Right.
legs there, with the same arching of the back. So now it's becoming pliable, and I'm holding the same tension with less sense of localizing pressure.
Right.
And after that, how do I change from the arching I did on my lower back to neutralize the accumulation of um, I would say compression, because there's a compression in here.
Yep.
I need to neutralize this compression by increasing the folds, and those will work to distribute these, to
Yes.
dissipate, not distribute, dissipate this accumulation of compression over there.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, that makes total sense. I think we're thinking of a very similar thing. Um,
And I also see, I understand what you're saying, that I see the body now as that having that loop of just what you described. I totally agree with you,
um,
and that comes from the folding
yeah.
and the Gumberto's constraints.
There's this concept that I keep coming about in different things I'm reading, and also, the whole Gimberto and the Leonid, uh, that, I mean, this kind of, what I'm about to say is true for everything, but just our bodies. The smaller and smaller size and time scale you go, the less permanent things are, and the more things change. And obviously, vice versa. The larger you get, the more permanent, the more stable, and that, um, I feel like it's a bi-directional thing, but in movement, I think what we're doing is we're finding the paths from the larger scale, where we're sending that stuff down in the most efficient way to the less permanent scale, because it's the less permanent constant turnover change scale that has the highest capacity to, um, dissipate.
Yeah, it's what Leonid calls the fascia farming,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's fascia farming thing. We are
And
feeding that those.
I think with the fascia farming, the first time I heard that, I thought I still had the vision of, the fascia net. I didn't think of it yet to where I'm thinking of it now, which is at the small scale fascia net, the connections are, they're not permanent. And then you have to think, well, what allows them not to be permanent? And then you get down even to a smaller scale, which is like chemical bonds, and then a smaller scale. And so it's like, well, what is cultivating the fascial farm do? It eventually leads to more, I guess, more chemical bonds that can break and reattach, or,
Yeah,
um,
and those chemical bonds result from mechanical transduction, so result from mechanical impact,
yes,
from
yes,
push-pull forces
yes.
all around.
There's a book I'm reading right now that, it's called Darwinian Physics, and, he has a concept in it where he talks about, shit. I gotta plug in, about entropy, and kind of rethinking entropy in terms of entropy as being like, the higher the entropy means you're moving towards a macro state that is more and more, um, stable. So change is
Mm-hmm.
less and less.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
ultimately the death of a system, excuse me, is almost like a level of permanence. It's when you reach a point where the change stops happening. And it makes me think of this stuff that we're doing, in that, like, this is in a certain way a slowing down of time, aging time, right? Because if you can keep your body, that internal turnover in your,
Motion.
yeah, if you can keep things at that small scale, constantly changing and reconfiguring, it will present at the macro scale as something that is not so uh, rigid and static.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I agree. Not as um, entropy
Yes.
at
And
at
it's
the
like,
end stage. Yeah,
and it's obvious because, like, we all look at, certain cultures around the world, uh, where people live into their 90s or hundreds, and they're still, active, and they're able to sit on the floor and be mobile, and it's like they have not they've never lost that ability of
yeah,
folding and dissipating.
yeah,
And then you
yeah.
look at, people in the West, and it's like they can barely fold down into a chair. It's
And what they do to gain that, or what we fitness trainers do to gain that, is we put them more firm. We
Yes,
hold them more, even more, in a different way, but we try to give them a core, a stable core,
yes,
a
yes,
stiff core, a stiff neck, back the neck, hold your scapula, hold. Everything has to be held.
yes,
So it has to be more fixated even.
yeah.
So it's a total contradiction. I agree with you. Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever heard of functional range conditioning?
No.
It's a mobility model, I guess. It's a manual therapy and a mobility model that is was started by a chiropractor in Canada. It's very big here in the United States, and um, basically their whole concept is working on joint independence. So assessing each joint independently, as if you could do that, but you can kind of get an idea.
Yeah.
and and trying to restore it to a normative level of independence. And they do that and they use a lot of the language we use as far as fascia and mechanical transduction and fibroblasts, but they do it through um, isometric tension. So they'll take your joint. Let's say I can actively go to this range. They'll take you to that range, and then they'll have you, like, for 2 minutes isometrically go against it, and then away from it, and then take away the barrier, and you can get further.
That is
And
PNF.
it's PNF on steroids, right?
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more sophisticated as far as their methodology, but it's basically PNF. And
And it's isolation. It's totally isolation. It's seeing
and
the
they
body
all
as part.
yes, and they also they have this term they call joint controlled articular rotation. So they systematically go through every joint, and they take the joint, whether it's a hinge joint or a ball and socket joint, through its maximal articulation, which they perceive as always being circular. And so they try with their methods to expand the capsular space. So basically,
Hmm.
if ideally you have a 360-degree circle, and somebody with a shitty shoulder has like 30% of that circle, they try to expand that. And I've been thinking recently about how I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I've been thinking recently of trying to conceptualize what we're doing with the skin folding with the joint capsular twisting motion that is capable. Like, if you, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if, kind of like, are we getting that with the skin folding that we're doing, and how can we maximize the rotary component inside the joint? I don't know if that question makes sense, but
Yeah, I understand what you're meaning. And this past week, I've been hearing a lot of people talk about, well, on biotensegrity settings, analyzing body motion and well, body part motion. They are mostly physiotherapists, osteopaths, pediatricians, etc. So they have the concept of the whole. They have the concept of they talk about the whole, but they bother about the joint twisting action. And okay, I know it's possible to do it, but do I really need to address the joint torsion or capacity inside the joint? If I look at a whole body, um,
well, I'll tell you what I've been thinking. Um, I think the skin, if you look at the whole and we map it with the skin folding, I think that if we are systematic about constant exploration of the skin folding in different positions, that will always convert into the joint
yeah,
space and the joint.
yeah, yeah,
Um, it's like the difference between exploring the fold in different directions and trying to.
yeah,
But
yeah.
even this, I technically could explore and find somewhere where I feel like there's a fold happening and just direct the movement through there, right?
Of course. And anytime you move through skin folds. You
Yeah,
cannot not move through skin folds. If you move without using any kind of skin folding, you're probably damaging your body.
yeah,
It
yeah.
hurts you. It's because according to the skin fold theories, and I agree with that. I go for that, is that y- the body needs first to know how to dissipate forces, and those forces are dissipated through the skin folds.
Yeah.
That's the name that Leonid gave it. That's the name we adopted, the skin folds. And they have the shape and they are they have no, they are made of the Gumberto's
Yeah.
constraints, or you can envision them with the retinacula and bursa that Leonid also talks about, or the pit and the tip of a hinge, um, and the things that go inside. So it's all a concept, but you end up having to work with that. I'm thinking of uh, I've been working all my life with movement within a method. So using a repertoire. And I've learned, and I know that's what people learn, I've learned to use a repertoire and to stick with a repertoire of movements because I was doing Pilates. Okay. And the interpretation of the repertoire and what we're doing is within the biomechanics setting and within the anatomical model that we have, muscles, joints, blah, 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 blah. So exercises were compared to each other um, using the muscles they work or the muscles they work or the joint that was moving that looks like it is moving and is doing something according to the muscle bone idea.
Yes.
So there was the only system the only application that I had of the repertoire or the motions to the people was for them to do shapes. It was not to nourish something. The only goal was for the person to do the motion, to do the poise or whatever,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
in dance. There was no content, no real content. And I see that many people went away from the methods, the old methods of work with repertoires, like yoga and so, because they found it was an empty thing. It was just repertoire and motions. And they end up in the other end that I see, which is in the systematic uh, parting of everything, and they end up trying to move the joint inside the capsula. Blah, 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 blah. I think that's the other end that I don't know. We lose the whole, we lose the movement part, and we have a very difficult time to see the moving parts within the real whole moving.
I
When
think
I
that's
move,
what's I think that's what's so liberating about this skin folding concept,
yes,
and that
totally.
and that essentially uh, it's limitless exploration, right?
Yeah.
But the exploration, by the sheer nature of the dynamics of the fold, is never isolated.
Yeah, it's true. It's totally true. But
Uh,
it's mostly liberating. Yeah.
it's incredibly liberating because now it's like, first of all, it's liberating in my own movement practice because it's never boring.
Yes.
And also with the people I work with, it's like, first of all, there's always an area that they can work on. But B, if they're having a complaint somewhere, I no longer you're no longer confined to this narrow bandwidth that exists if you're just thinking of uh, muscles or you're just thinking of planes of movement. It's like, okay, I know in this region where you're having problems where these folds should happen, and I see where they're happening on you, and they're either not happening or they're barely happening, but I can use that as an entry point
Hmm.
to explore and also improve the dissipative capacity. And then you have the
Dissipation. That's the
and then
word.
you have
Yeah.
the, and then you
Dissipation.
have the double whammy of the nature of this work means that the person doing it has to become more embodied.
Yes, of course. Of course.
They have to be able to,
Feel from inside. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's not just imagining, use imagination. No, you need really to have the introspection developed in yourself
yes,
so you can do these kind. Well, you always do it because you always use folds, as we said.
yes,
But you can when you're aware of something, you enhance it. You use it on purpose. You have choices. If you're not aware, you just follow
Yes.
with a bunch of the others. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you end up hurting yourself or not choosing the best for you. When
Yes.
you're aware of yourself, you know you can, with your condition, with your situation, with your natural constraints or the way you're shaped and how you move, you can you can even do repetitive movement without ending up straining or hurting
Right.
yourself. There is a limit. There is a resistance that you can withstand. But as long as you're conscious, you can repeat it, and you can use external weights. You don't need to do it like the super light thing.
Yeah.
You can use heavy weights as long as you have that perception, introception, whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. That's yeah, yeah. We also in the Pilates push course that I teach with my friends in Porto, we always start with a segment of um, we call it somatic exploration, somatic approach to movement, where we just do simple movements on the floor, movements, or standing, and they ask, why are we doing this? For the sake of it, just to sense yourself as a mover. And we call it, it's like we use, I did some Feldenkrais, so I use some kind of Feldenkrais logic of classes. We call attention for just one little thing using one simple movement. Okay, one simple movement. What do you feel in your, well, I don't know. We explore one fold or one relation, or and then we can expand that relation or we can narrow that relation if the persons are available to
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
wider or
Yeah.
not. But the purpose is just for you to be aware of yourself as a a, a moving system, a moving being.
Yes.
How does it feel to be a moving? Yeah. How can you widen your awareness in
Yeah.
that
Hold on.
setting?
Somebody just I gotta let somebody in. Sorry.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Bobby, sorry, I have to move. I'm sorry because I
Okay.
need to make dinner and it's
Uh,
7:30 here. I need
Not a
to
problem. Um,
close
let's
up.
uh, let's try to connect maybe next week.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great.
And also
Yeah.
next time I need to talk to you about when the best time in the spring would be to visit
Okay.
Portugal. So,
Okay. I'll
all right,
let you know.
all right,
We'll talk.
bye.
Thank you.
See ya.